this is Carrie Ann. Today I am going to show you how to do the double crochet border for your mosaic crochet designs. Here's an example here. This was a practice pattern I did, and this is the double crochet border. What this does is it hides your ends here and it adds a nice frame to your piece. So this is one example of the double crochet border, and as you can see, I used a different color to start my double crochets, and that also adds a nice frame, and it also allows you to see your slip stitches so you can easily do your double crochets into your piece. So that's one example. This is the Goddess Moon Rug design that I did. And in this example, you see I used a nice green for my slip stitches so I could see. And all my ends are hidden. And this is the design I did. This pattern is for sale on Reverly, and you will see a link down below the video if you're interested. And then this is my easy mosaic throw pattern that I did. And again, there's my double border hiding all of my ends, and I framed it with a different color. This pattern is also for sale, and there is a link in the description below. So in our last video, we created this practice pattern, and this is the pattern I'm going to use to show you how to do that double border and how to use those ends, or hide those ends rather. So let's go ahead and get started. So what you're going to need to finish your piece is you're going to need a pair of scissors. You will need the 5mm hook you used to create this piece, and then you're going to go step down one hook size, and this is a half a hook size. This is a 4.5mm hook, and I am going to be using this yarn, this taupe color, for my slip stitches, and then for my border I'm going to use the white yarn that I used in this piece. So to start, you're going to make sure that the ends on the right side of your piece are all tied up, and then we're just going to trim those ends real neatly, like so. Don't be afraid to trim your ends. They're nice and secure. So we're going to do this side too. I think we'll just go right about here. Okay, so we're going to start at the top of our piece. This is where we originally started our pattern, at the bottom. This is the top. You can start anywhere. There's no counting in this, and we're going to just start by doing slip stitches. So I'm going to use my 5mm hook, and slip stitch is not hard. You just go under both loops and you pull your yarn through, leaving a tail. Just move the tail out of the way there, and then we go to our next stitch here, pull your loop through, and then pull it through there, like so. So your first stitch you might have to tighten up a little bit, which I do. And then you just move on to your next stitch under both loops, pull your loop through, and then pull it through again. This is your next stitch. Pull your yarn through, and again. So that's what your slip stitches look like. And again, this one you're just gonna tighten up a little bit, and we'll take care of that stitch when we go around all the way around and get to this end. We're going to do slip stitches all the way to the corner, and I'll show you what to do when you get to the corner. Okay, we're coming close to the end here, and we've got 2 more stitches left here. So we'll just finish our slip knots to the end. So again, under both loops we're going, pull your yarn through, oops, and pull your yarn through, and this is our last stitch. We're just going to do a regular slip knot, and then we're just simply going to turn our piece. So now if we look here, our next slip knot, oops, get my yarn straightened out here. Our next slip knot, so this is the end of the row, is right underneath, like so. And we're just going to continue those slip knots all the way down to the next. So you kind of got to stretch it out a little bit. These are your border stitches at the end. So you see that little space in between there? That's where you're going with your slip knots. And it can be a little confusing when you first start doing these, because you've got all these other strings hanging around, but you can really just feel for it. So there's my next hole and my next slip knot. There's my next one. And my next slip knot. We're going to do that all the way to the end of this. So I'll see you at the end. When you get to the end here, so this is your first row here. So we got 2 more to go. So there's 1 and 2. And then you simply turn your piece. This is, you're at the start of your piece now. And this is going to be a little loose, but you can tighten that up a little bit. So this is our original where we started with our slip knot. So we're just going to continue. You just turned your piece. And you may have to look a little bit. These are our chain stitches. You're just going to go underneath each chain stitch and do your slip knot. And we're going to do that all the way until the end. And I'll meet you at the other end. So now I'm coming to the end of the row here, and I'm just going to finish up these. I think there's 3. Sometimes you just gotta kind of look. So there's my 2 loops from my chain stitch. So I'm just continuing down the end of the row with my slip stitches. And I think I have 1 more right here. And then you just turn your piece, and my first slip knot is right here. This is these are your border stitches here. You see, you just kind of pull a little bit and you're going to see that hole in between the border stitches, and that's where you're going. So again, these ends can be a little tricky sometimes because you got all these loose ends here. So there's my next one. You just got to take your time and be patient with yourself. Move those loose ends out of your way. And we'll work this all the way to the end. I'll see you at the end. Which, there's only 9 rows, so we don't have far to go here. Oops. There's my next one. And then this one will be my last one on this row end here. Oops. And then we're just gonna turn our piece and work our way back to the beginning. So I'll see you when we get there. Okay, so now I'm coming to the end of where I started. So I've got 2 more stitches to do. So we're going to do 2 more slip knots here. There's 1. And 2. And we're back at the beginning where we started. So now we're just going to cut our yarn. And then we're going to actually pull the yarn, our yarn all the way through here. So this is how we end. So as you can see, we need 1 more stitch right here. So we're going to do what's called the invisible join, and it's really simple. On the first stitch we did here, we're going to put our hook on the first stitch we did here. We're going to put our hook through, whoops, from the back through both loops like that. Take the end of your last slip stitch, the tail of your last slip stitch, and you're going to just pull it through both those loops like that. And now we need to make that connection here to complete that slip stitch. So you're going to put your hook in the back loop of your last stitch, oops, just the back loop, and then you're going to take this tail and pull that through. And that's going to create your last stitch, which is also called the invisible join. So now you have, oops, we have 2 tails here, and we're going to weave those in. So, okay, so to begin your double crochets, you're going to start in the back of your piece, and this is going to be a little tricky because sometimes it's difficult to get your hook into your slip stitches. So you're just going to want to take your time. So to start, we're going to go under the slip stitch We're going to pull our yarn through, and I'm going to be using the white yarn that I used for my background color in my piece. And then we're going to yarn over. We're going to do two we're going to do 2 chains like that. And then we're going to work into the next slip stitch. Oh, we're going to do a double crochet, so we're going to yarn over, work into your next slip stitch, yarn over, pull your yarn through 1, yarn over, through 2, yarn over, through 2. So these are your 2 chains here, and this is your first double crochet stitch. And we're going to do that all the way till we get to the corner. So we're next slip stitches here, yarn over, work your hook through, and I went down a half a size on the hook, so this is 4.5 millimeter. Yarn over, pull your yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Just going to keep going till we get to the corner here. So we start in the back side because that is the toughest part of the double border, is doing your double crochets in the back side of your piece. Once you get through that step, it becomes a lot easier. Go on to the next one. So that's how that looks. And we're going to do that all the way to the corner, and I'll meet you at the corner. Okay, I'm coming to the corner here. I can see that I've got 2 more stitches. So these are going horizontally. So I've got 1, 2, and then the next stitch is going down vertically. So let's do our last 2 double crochets. And then I've got 1 more. And then to turn the corner, we're just going to do 2 chains. And then we can turn our work. And then our next stitch is right here. And we're going to fold our ends over so we can see our slip stitches. When you get to this end, it can be a little frustrating. You're just going to take your time and make sure your ends are out of your way. They do get a little frustrating, but it's worth it in the end. So we're going to yarn over. And there's your corner there. We're going to go on to the next one, yarn over. And we're going to do that all the way to the next corner. And I'll meet you there. Okay, I'm coming to my last 2 stitches. And we can see them right here, 1 and 2. So yarn over. One. And then 1 more. And then we're at the corner again, so we're going to do 2 chains. Oops. 1, 2, and then turn our work. And our next stitch is right there. And we're going to continue all the way. There's our corner. We're going to continue all the way to the end, or to the next corner. And I'll see you there. So I'm coming to the end of this side of my piece, so I just got a few more to do here. Oops. Again, you're just gonna take your time. It's a little frustrating sometimes, but it'll give a nice finished look to your project. And it, like I said earlier, it's totally worth it. So here's my last stitch on this side. Yep. I'm at the corner. My next stitch is right here, so I'm going to chain 2, turn my work, and here's my next stitch right here, and then I'm going to work my way up to this corner. So again, the ends are a little frustrating. They can get in the way. Just take your time with it. And you'll eventually get there. And I will see you at the corner. Okay, so I'm at my corner on this side, my last stitch. So at each corner, once you get to that corner, you're gonna always do those 2 chains on your first row of double crochet. So we're gonna chain 2, turn our work. Here's my next stitch. And we're going to go all the way down this side till we hit our beginning stitch where we started. So I'll see you there. Okay, I'm coming to the end of this side and I'm meeting up with where I started. So I'm just going to finish up these last 3 double crochet stitches. Oops. There we go. And there's my last one. And then we're going to do another invisible join here. So we're going to go ahead and cut our yarn, leaving a tail. Yarn over and pull our yarn through. So let's try to zoom in. So here are my first 2 chain stitches, 1, 2. So I'm going to do my invisible join in that 3rd stitch. So once again, we're going to go into the back of that stitch under both loops. Take our tail and pull it through both those loops there. Give it a little tug. And then in the back loop of our last stitch, we're going to go ahead and pull that through. And there is our invisible join. Just kind of adjust that a little bit. So that is the last, so that is our first row of double crochets in the back of our piece. And that is the hardest part of, of this particular technique. So now we're going to do a second row all the way around, but it's going to be a lot easier. These ends, we're just going to crochet over this end here when we come back around. In fact, I'm going to trim that down just a little bit. So when we come back around this side, I'm going to crochet over that end so I don't have to go back and weave it over. So we're going to go ahead and start our next round, and I'll show you what to do at the corners. And we're going to do double crochets all the way around. And again, we're still in the back side of our piece. This is where I did my invisible join. Not going to start there. I think I'll start here. And for this, we're going to go behind both loops as we're doing our double crochets. So we're going to start by pulling your loop through, leaving a bit of a tail there. And then we're going to do 2 chains. 1, 2. This tail, from this, I'm going to bring forward and I'm going to crochet over that tail. So we'll go ahead and start our double. So yarn over, go underneath both loops and your tail, and start your double crochets till we get to the corner there. So again, the tail I'm just holding with my finger here. So yarn over, go under both loops and my tail, do my double. Oops. My yarn is splitting on me, but we'll just fix that. There we go. And we're going to go all the way to the corner, and I'll show you what to do when we get to the corner. Okay, so I've got 3 more double crochets to do before I hit that corner, so I'm going to go ahead and finish up. Oops, that was a single. Finish up those doubles. One. Still trying to do singles, I guess. There's 2. And there's my last stitch there. Right? So I'm at the corner. So this is going to happen at every single corner, and I'm going to show it to you once on this side. So we're going to do 2 double crochets into that corner, into those 2 chain stitches. So that's 1, 2, I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm going to do 2 more double crochets in that same chain space, those at the corner. And that's what you're going to do at every corner of your piece. 1 and 2. So again, in that chain space, you're going to do 2 double crochets, 2 chains, and then 2 more double crochets in that chain space to work around your corner. And then we're just going to head into our next side. And don't forget this stitch right here. Sometimes it's easy to forget, but this is your next stitch. And we're just going to double crochet. And my yarn split again. Don't like it when that happens. Double crochet. All the way to the next corner. And I'll see you at the next corner. Okay, I'm at my next corner and I'm going to show this to you one more time. So I'm at that corner there. I'm going to do 2 double crochets in that chain space. That's 1, 2. Then I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2, and I'm going to do 2 more double crochets in that chain space. 1, and 2. And that's my corner. And my next stitch for this side is going to start right here. Sometimes we forget that stitch, so pay attention. And we'll just continue our double crochet stitches. And I'm just going to go ahead all the way around till we get to where we started. So you got 2 more corners to go. So remember, in the corners you do 2 double crochets in the chain space, chain 2, and do 2 more double crochets in the chain space. So I will see you back at the start. Okay, so I'm almost back to where we started. I crocheted over that one end that we had here. And I just got 3 more stitches to go. So let's go ahead and do those. 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my yarn. Pull my yarn through there. And then once again, we need to do the invisible join. So we'll go through that one more time. So here are my 2 chain stitches I did at the beginning. 1, 2. So under both loops from the back, under both loops from the 3rd stitch, put my hook through, and I'm going to bring my tail through both, tighten that up a little bit, and then from our last stitch, the back loop coming from the back of it from behind, and I'm just going to pull that through, creating that invisible join. And there is our 2 rows on the back part of our piece with our invisible join. And so now the good news is we're going to work into the front part of our piece. And what the good news is that it's really easy from here on out. So this tail, I'm just going to trim this tail a little bit. This tail is going to disappear within. This tail from our invisible join, you can go ahead and weave that through into your piece. So we'll do that, and then we'll start on the front side of our piece. Okay, so that's the back side of our piece. We've got 2 rows of double crochet. Depending on what your pattern calls for, it could call for 2 rows, it could call for 5 rows. It just depends on the pattern. For this example, I'm just doing 2 rows of double crochet. So now we're going to work in the front of our piece, and this is going to be a repeat of what we did on the back. Here are our slip stitches here. So let's make sure you can see those. The only difference is that we're just working in the back loop of our slip stitch on the front. It's going to leave this a nice edge with this color. Now if you didn't want to leave the edge, you could go through both loops. I like to leave that framing, so I'm just going to use the back loop of my slip stitch in the front of my piece. So I'm going to go ahead and pull my yarn through. I'm going to chain 2, tighten that up a little bit. That's 1 and 2, and now I'm going to double crochet all the way to the corner. And I'm going to double crochet over my tail there so we don't have to weave it in at the end. And I'm just going to do that all the way to the corner. And again, this is much easier than the back side. You're going to zip right through it. So I will meet you at the corner. I'll show you what we do at the corner one more time, and then we'll finish up our project. Okay, I'm coming to the corner of my first double crochet row on the front of my piece. There's my last stitch, and there's my first stitch going down the piece. That's my last stitch. So on the first row, you just do that 2 chains. 1, 2, and you're going to do that at each corner. Turn your piece and work your way down this side. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this up. I'm going to do the same thing I did on the back. I'm going to do 2 rows of double crochet, and then I'll show you how we close that up. Okay, so here we are. Here we are towards the end of this double border, and as you can see, I can finished my 2 rows of double crochet on the front side of my piece. I did all my invisible joins, and I've got no ends coming out. And so your last step with this would be to join these 2 sides together, and that will hide your ends on the edges here. And to do that, it's not very hard. We're gonna pick a corner. We're gonna start in a corner, and you should have the same count stitches on both sides. And if you don't, I'll show you what you can do. So we're going to start on the right hand side corner. I'm working the front of my piece. It doesn't matter which side you start on. So in my corner on both sides, I did my corner stitches, which were 2 chain stitches. So here are my 2 chain stitches on both sides. 1, 2, 1, 2. So we're going to just line those up. So from those 2 chain stitches, this is my first double crochet on this side, and here's my first double crochet on that side. So I'm going to start there, and I'm going to join them together by doing slip knots. So going into the back loop and then the back loop on the other side. I'm just going to pull my yarn through and then move on to the next stitch, which is right here. Again, going through the back loop on the front side and then the back loop on that side, and I'm going to do a chain stitch. My first stitch I'm going to tighten up a little bit here. Tighten that up. And I'm going to work those chain stitches all the way to the next corner. And I'm just going to move along slowly, making sure that I'm lining up the back stitch with the front stitch. Just like that. And that is going to close up the 2 sides. So when I get to the other end, I'll show you what to do next. Okay, so I'm coming to the next corner in my project. I have a couple of slip stitches left. So my slip stitches are lining up just fine. So I have a good count there. If I had an extra stitch, what I would do is I would put my hook through the back loop of that stitch, and then instead of moving forward to this stitch here, I would just take it back and do the slip stitch into the same stitch that I did the stitch before. But my count is good, so I'm going to just move forward into this and slip stitch here, and then I have one more before I get to my 2 chain stitches in the corner, there and there. And my yarn is splitting again. And then I'm just going to line up my stitches in the corner. So here are my 1, 2 chain stitch on the front side, 1, 2 chain stitch on the back side, and we just continue to line up those stitches and do our slip stitch. It's 1, and 2, and I will do that at every corner. So now I'm just going to go around the corner and continue all the way around till I'm finished, and then I'll show you how to finish it up. Okay, so I've gone all the way around and I've come to the end of my stitches, and I have done my last stitch. So right here I'm going to do the invisible joins. I'm going to cut my yarn first. I'm going to cut my yarn here. I'm going to pull it through, and then I'm going to need one more stitch here. So I'm going to go behind my 2 stitches, bring my tail through there, and then behind my 2 stitches, here. Make sure I have the right tail. And pull that through. And there's my invisible join. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just simply weave these stitches into the piece, and that will make them disappear. And that's that. That is how you do a double border, and that's what you should end up with. Here. So that's the front of the piece, and that's the back of the piece, and my ends are neatly tucked away and you can't see them, and it does give a nice framing to your work. So that is the end of this video. That's how you do a double border. I hope you enjoyed it, and again, if you're interested in any of my designs, there's a link in the description below in the comments. So until next time, thanks for joining me. See you soon.